So welcome and thank you very much for joining us today in the members talk that ENCATC is hosting. We are extremely proud in ENCATC to be hosting and giving the space to the Erasmus Plus funded Blueprint Project Charter, the European Cultural Heritage Skills Alliance, to launch this series of webinars. 3 webinars where we are going to learn about the project's findings and conclusions. My name is Juan Manuel Ejedus Gravina. I'm the Communications Director of ENCATC, the European Network on Cultural Management and Policy. And it's my duty as well to share the apologies from our Secretary General, Janalia Coliandro-Bayens, who will not be able to join us today and make the classic introduction. So here I am. So, well, ENCATC is really proud to be part of this very important project for the cultural heritage field, precisely also because it perfectly aligns with our core mission of strengthening and enhancing skills and competences in the sector, always from a future-oriented point of view, meaning to be better prepared and equipped to face the current and future challenges that lie ahead. ENCATC is working as the leader of the communication and dissemination group of the project, together with the co-leadership of NEMO, the European Network of Museums Organizations, carrying out this big and important task of sharing and making accessible and understandable all the wealth of knowledge that Charter has produced so far, and that is still producing because there's much more things to come. So now Charter, we have been working for 3 years and a half already, looking to map the current and future needs of the sector, to bridge the gap on skill shortages and mismatches between the educational and occupational systems. Always looking at the cultural heritage sector from a holistic point of view, as an ecosystem with specific functions operating on it. So this series of webinars will give us the opportunity to discover the different sides that we have been working on. So today, as we know, we are going to be focusing on the regional dimension. But next, 29th of May, we are going to explore sectoral dynamics of heritage stakeholders, as well as gaps and needs for professional development in Europe. And we're going to finish with the 3rd webinar on the 12th of June, where we are going to present the emerging and innovative curricula for cultural heritage education and training. So with no further ado, we can start today's encounter. As I have been saying, this is going to be fully devoted to explore the lessons, findings, and conclusions from the regional experiences from Charter. And in this sense, it's a pleasure to welcome and introduce you to Astrid Hannes, Policy and Project Manager of ERRIN, the European Regions Research and Innovation Network, who's going to be in charge of leading this discussion today. I would also like to thank the speakers present here today, coming from the different affiliated regions of the project, who will give us really the valuable opportunity to learn firsthand what skills challenges they have faced and how they have worked to overcome them. So thank you very much for joining Ciprian Stefan from Asia Museum, Ainhoa Bernabé Aramberri from the Basque Government, Alexandra Correia from the Alentejo Regional Development Agency, Marie Odenbrink Wittmark from the Basra-Gotland region, and Lars Krüger from the German Maritime Museum. I would also like to thank the presence of Herman Bashiron Mendolicchio, Charter's project manager, who is going to be in charge of animating the questions and answer session after presentations. So this being said, Astrid, I give you the floor to start this discussion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Juan, for this presentation. I am so excited to see so many familiar faces on screen, but also many new faces from all over Europe, north, south, east, west. And this is exactly what we were hoping for when we started scheduling this webinar quite a while ago. So I have the privilege to share with you today, together with this wonderful group of speakers, with whom we have started working on regions in the Charter project. We have prepared some slides. We will talk you through them so you get a better understanding of the work that was conducted. Afterwards, we also, because we're very keen to learn from you, the audience, have prepared some questions that we would like to discuss with you, and we close the session with a final Q&A. I'm sharing my screen now, and I hope somebody can give me an auditive cue.
Perfect, Astrid, we see.
Okay, perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, we thought about picking an exciting title for this webinar, a bit of teasing one. How can heritage skill unlock the full potential of European regions? And today, do you see the screen moving? Can somebody give me an auditive cue?
Still on the cover.
Technology is always on my side, but not this afternoon. So give me one more minute and then I will be with you. Voila, I think we move to the second slide, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Juan already introduced the wonderful speakers of today with this exciting of regions. We have started a charter journey in 2021, and this is a journey under the umbrella of the Charter project, which is a European funded project with the aim of developing a sectoral strategy, a skill strategy for cultural heritage. We have a full consortium with 21 full members, 7 affiliated members, 19 associated partners. The most important thing that I want to highlight is that in this consortium of the project, Charter is actually the first blueprint project ever that is conducted in the European Union, in which regions were involved from the start. So it's a pioneering blueprint in that way with 6 regions. And this is important to explain because what we have done with the regions in this project is really dive into the real world context of cultural heritage, professional practitioners at the local and the regional level to understand what their skills needs and also skills gaps are. We have taken a bottom-up and a multi-stakeholder approach, which basically means that we have been reaching out and working with practitioners, but also education and training providers, researchers, policymakers, civil society, both from the sector, but also from sectors who are impacted by cultural heritage or who are impacting cultural heritage. And last but not least, this is also very important, having the regions on board from the start, because we actually already started paving the way for the Charter Alliance. We reached more than 300 regional stakeholders in our discussions, in our work, and it provided us with a wealth of information and insights, of which we will just share with you the highlights today. In the work of the project, we conducted these 6 regional case studies where we actually first tried to develop a model. How do you do an analysis of a cultural heritage ecosystem? Of course, then we also, in developing the process and the work, we were looking to mobilize the ecosystems to get involved in the Charter work. And obviously, we also listened very carefully about how could the future Charter European Alliance actually be rolled out in the best possible conditions at regional level. Some of you might already be familiar with the term of an ecosystem, but for those for whom this is a fairly new thing, when we talk about cultural heritage ecosystems, we actually refer to a wider community that is able to adapt to the environment that they're facing. It is about a wide range of actors involving researchers, entrepreneurs, industry, the sector, society in general. And it's really about looking on how do these actors in such an ecosystem work together to increase their innovation potential and their collaboration. When we talk about ecosystems, the place-based dimension, again, is very important. And this is exactly what we did in the case studies, engaging with a group of local actors, looking on how do they work together, what are the challenges, what are the needs, and how can they produce together and co-design some solutions offered. When we started this project, we actually did first an important planning work. We designed a methodology on how to conduct these ecosystem and stakeholder mappings in the 6 regions. We started in 2021. After that, we also reflected on how could we run 6 two-day regional workshops in the regions to really engage with the stakeholders. After designing the format, we obviously organized 6 workshops, started in 2021, ended in 2023. And then for all of the 6 case studies, we made a separate report to collect the detailed information. And we also made an integrated analysis of the case studies. What are the commonalities? What are the differences? And what can actually Charter pick up to pave the way for the alliance? And what can policymakers, stakeholders in the sector, and stakeholders outside the sector do to progress in the field of upskilling the cultural heritage workforce to make it fit for purpose for the future? Last but not least, and this is where we are now, we presented the learnings of our work for the first time in last December in Dublin. We also had an exchange with some other regions who were not part of the Charter project to see to what extent our findings and learnings are recognizable, and also to check, to do a bit of a fact check, if the solutions and the recommendations that we developed could actually also work for them and in that way be transferable. On this slide, you see the journey that we actually undertook together. We started in the Basque Country in October 2021. And I will now give the floor to the speakers who will, for each of the regions, explain you very, very shortly. And basically, it's a mission impossible to explain more than 3 years' work in 6 minutes, but they will give their best shot for it. They will talk and highlight, first of all, what are the skills-related challenges that their regions are facing. Then they will present very shortly some good examples of regional pilots of new education and training programs and projects that they have set up to address them. And last but not least, and this is where I really reach out to the audience and all of you, to also take your mobile phone at hand. They all have a question to the audience. So after the presentation, the 2 slides, you will see and you will hear about the question that our speakers are keen to learn about from you. We will do this through a Mentimeter poll. And if you have your mobile phone at hand, I would encourage you to take them now. You can surf very easily to menti.com and introduce the code that you see on the slide. You can also just take your camera and scan the QR code, which normally should lead you to the Mentimeter question. And when we will move on a bit further in the presentation, you will see there the first questions appearing. We encourage you, if you already think about some answers to these questions during the presentation, to put them in the chat, but we will pick them up and Herman will conduct us during the Q&A at the end. So I would say this was my very short introduction to give the warm-up, and I'm happy to give the floor to Ainhoa from the Basque Country.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the webinar. The Basque government, through the Berpiztu program, is using industrial heritage for economic reactivation and employment in the Basque Country. It's a transformation plan that addresses 3 global transitions in line with the Next Generation European Recovery Fund. The policy area number 6 is dedicated to trade, tourism, and cultural industries, and is focused on employment and economic reactivation with the aim of professionalizing and structuring the cultural sector and positioning the Basque Country brand as an advanced region in cultural industry policies. The Basque government has invested 153 million euros in cultural industries over the past 4 years. However, in the process, we have identified some gaps in our education system. First, there is a need for more heritage-specific vocational training programs and more specialization in higher education. Basic bachelor programs are only anchored in traditional frameworks or disciplines. Master's programs and doctoral programs, however, are more interdisciplinary. Second, lifelong learning is very important for cultural heritage professionals, especially for emerging issues. The regional stakeholders identify upskilling needs in overall indigitization, intellectual property, heritage interpretation, and communicational and mediation. And a specific study program for heritage education is missing, but important. Third, the cultural heritage sector in the Basque Country needs more participation in international heritage networks. The Chepare Basque Institute strengthens cultural diplomacy promoting the Basque language and culture, but its main focus is on creators and creative industries, and less in creating collaborative networks on safeguarding, conservation, or enhancement of cultural heritage. These international networks are key to unlock European Union funding and to establish regional innovation partnerships. Fourth, there is also an urgent need for the legal recognition of professional profiles in the field of cultural heritage in order to guarantee the quality of professionals who have access to public tenders, for example, for public restoration works. Astrid, please, next slide. Thank you. In any case, I would like to present some cases, as Astrid says before, and to explain how different institutions deal with the lack of specific competencies. The first of them is La Encartada Museum, that is a museum located in a former wool factory that operated from 1892 to 1992. The buildings, machinery, and workers' quarters form a highly evocative ensemble that takes you back to the beginnings of the Spanish Industrial Revolution. The site has preserved and now displays the original machinery used to make the traditional Basque berets, which are also an important heritage asset and a symbol of Basque cultural identity. The maintenance manager working in there, with no previous experience or knowledge of cultural heritage, began by assessing the most immediate needs, but is currently working on a plan for mechanical and functional restoration. Anyway, in this center, we must distinguish between the maintenance of these machines and a restoration plan. Restoring the machines to their original state is an impossible task due to the lack of parts or because it is economically unfeasible. Nevertheless, there are different maintenance protocols for the individually registered machines. The conservation of this type of heritage shows the need for more specialized workers with hybrid profiles, overall for industrial heritage, I would say. There is another case, working very close with the industrial sector, and is the Machine Tool Museum. This museum has support from the industry, being one of the museum's main sponsors, the AFM Cluster, the organization that represents the interest of advanced and digital manufacturing in Spain. The Machine Tool Museum is a living museum showing the most typical machine tools that were revolutionary in their day. They are all on display while in operation, recreating the atmosphere of a mid-19th century machine workshop in the area. They work closely with the Machine Tool Institute, which offer their students, in addition to their professional training, the opportunity to learn about the origins of the sector and its techniques. Another way to deal with the lack of skills is the Mining Museum in Gallarta. This museum has a significant number of staff that work as volunteers. And I have to say that is one of the hallmarks. They are looking for collaborations for restoration, documentation, and heritage interpretation as well. The museum is located in an area of a long mining tradition, so it's important to have the experience and knowledge of the local population. Even so, they have a team of professionals to manage the center, catalog the collection, and attend to the public, as well as a team of interdisciplinary archaeologists specialized in mining in the Basque Country. And finally, we have Albaola. Albaola is also a living shipyard museum whose aim is to revive the Basque maritime heritage and recover the maritime technology of shipbuilding. Its most popular project is the construction of a replica of the Nao San Juan, a 16th century Basque whaler that sank off in the coast of Canada. I have to say that it's also supported by UNESCO. This museum has its own boat building school with a learning system based on experiential education. Tasks are tackled from the very beginning of the training, focusing on the areas in which the students are more interested. The training program lasts 3 years, during which the students can take part in every phase of traditional shipbuilding. So these are our cases. I don't know if they are the best cases, but it's what we have in the Basque Country, and I think they show a wide experience in the heritage sector. And finally, I will ask the question to the audience, and it's, do you know of other examples or repurposing industrial heritage as a driver for regional innovation? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ainhoa. So very well presented. It gives a very good overview, and also for the question. So the participants, I invite you to start giving us your replies. I see them coming in on my screen. Very good. So I can encourage you to keep on doing so, and we will look at all the answers at the end of the webinar. So this was the first region. Then I am happy to give the floor to Ciprian Stefan, who is the General Managing Director of Astra Museum in Sibiu County in Romania, to take the floor to present the work that we did in Romania. Go ahead, Ciprian.
Yes, hello everybody. It's good to be here. So for our region, when we have the workshop, we try to present the needs for the region, but also the resources, because it's important to have an evaluation of our human resources in the region. So we do that. We present to everybody what resources do we have. I mean, human resources who still have a lot of skills, a lot of competencies, but for them it's very difficult to be in the market of the restorations or in the market of the cultural heritage system or cultural tourism. Then in our region, when we see these, let's say, issues and challenges, we start as a museum to make the paper to have these certifications on a national level to be approved, and also our institutions can provide those certifications by national authority in order to help the craftsmen and help the professionals from the heritage field to have this proof that they can work in the heritage field. It wasn't easy, and the need is, because on the regional level, on the next budget period, European budget period, we will have around, let's say, 175 million euro money that will be invested in the cultural heritage field. and for them can be an opportunity also. Why I say that? Because all the companies need to work with professionals when it's about restoring a historical building or historical part of a UNESCO site. And the main need is for the companies in constructions that they don't have any more carpenters or coopers or people who knows how to manage the part of the constructions which were made in different historical periods. Also, it's about the open-air museums too, because in Romania we are 26 open-air museums with more than 2,000 historical buildings in the open-air museum that should be maintained for the future, but also to be restored every year, because we are dealing with a huge challenge regarding the climate change. The humidity is growing, and also the destroying of the monuments are irreversible. We have a lot of roofs with straws and with shingles, with organic materials that needs interventions all the year. So we don't have those persons who can be paid because they don't have any paperwork. So we were thinking to us, and thanks to this project, thanks to Charter, it's very helpful, because then we can show to the EU level, because not just in Romania are open air museum or villages which are very visited by the tourists. We have to talk also about the UNESCO sites from the rural areas who should be maintained in the future. So I think this example can be exported, but also our partners need to see the reality, what's happening, what can happen in the future if we don't do anything right now. We just opened yesterday the House of Art, but until we open the House of Art, we managed to provide competence and certifications of the competence for more than 30 craftsmen. And right now we work on a paperwork for the authorities in order to help them when they have direct procurement or public procurement for the restorations or for that different type of interventions in the constructions, to make the company work with those people who are certified. Because we provide a database with them, with let's say 20 carpenters, 25 coopers, and so on. And in this way, the companies, we have a database from where to take them and to work. And authorities have also the law together. They have the law, and having the law, it will be very easy to plant this, let's say, this word in the direct procurement in order to don't have any problems in the future with the people, with the authorities who will control the project. I think it's very important to talk about the heritage and to talk about the economical effects also, if we want our decision makers to understand our directions and our role in the heritage fields for the future. Because I can give you our example. It will be a challenge to choose how many artifacts, how many buildings we'll have in the next 50 years. If we won't have not just the human resources qualified to maintain the buildings, but also the materials. So this should be on our, let's say, on our agenda for the next years in order to establish, okay, which is the direction. And if we won't have any human resources qualified in this field, then will be a problem. On a CBO region level, for example, we do have university with restorers, but only for the objects, not for the constructions. So that is not okay in the future, and also it will be very difficult to qualify people on the university level in the future to be a carpenter, let's say. And why to do that? Because we still have in the countryside and in the urban areas a lot of people who have those competencies, but they don't want to work anymore with traditional tools in the restorations because they are not very well paid. The authorities doesn't have the let's say the rules, the proper rules to improve these rules for the companies who work in the restorations. So we need to connect all of this. If we won't connect all of this, then we just have another project, just offering some papers to the craftsmen, and that's it. We have to offer a sustainable future for the craftsmen and through this competence and certification center. And this example will be exported on the national level. What I can say, and very short, I can say that on the Ministry of Culture level, because I'm also the advisor of the Ministry of Culture, now they will start, after our discussions, presenting the needs and so on, the challenges, at least 4 national financial instruments for the cultural heritage, not just for UNESCO site, but also for the historical buildings, not just historical monuments, because it's important to talk also about historical buildings, not just historical monuments. Okay, so I think, yeah, the question is who will be interested in connecting Casa Artelor to establish a European skills partnership for the craft training. For me, it's very important to have this partnership for craft training, because we need to assure the future of our cultural heritage. And that future cannot be assured without a very good human resources, a very strong partnership between the countries from EU level. Thank you.
Thank you, Ciprian, for introducing our audience to the work we've conducted in CBU. And I think indeed the Casa Artelor is a nice example on that can be transferred to other regions in Europe. So for the participants, if you're interested in craft training, feel free to reply in the Mentimeter. And then I'm happy to give the floor to our next speaker, an expert in maritime cultural heritage, Lars Krüger from the German Maritime Museum. Lars, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, and hello to everyone. In Bremen, we decided to have a focus on our workshop on the maritime cultural heritage and what skills are needed for preservation. Why did we choose this, let's say, really specialized topic? Well, this background, is there a slide missing? No? Okay. Well, go to the next slide anyway. There is Bremen is a small micro region consisting of 2 cities and with a high cultural density. All types of cultural heritage are present in this region, and despite various universities and educational institutions, education in the field of cultural heritage is rather weak. The protection of intangible heritage is not enshrined in legislation. Because we are located closely to the sea, maritime culture is one of the most important factors for the local identity and also for the tourism in the region, which is really important for us. The efforts required to preserve this heritage are considerable and financially difficult to realize. We see a continuous reduction of cultural assets in the last years, and this is because the preservation of large-scale industrial heritage is generally a huge challenge, which is incomparably greater in the maritime sector. At the same time, maritime culture assets appeal to a large group of the population across all generations and backgrounds. To sum up, people just love ships, people love the sea, and so we have many people are going to this region to see traditional harbors, to see traditional boats, and this is really important for us. The German Maritime Museum, which I'm working in, is one of the big institutes in this region. It's a Leibniz Institute for Maritime History and a research facility at the same time as the museum. We are fulfilling the tasks of collecting, preserving, researching, exhibiting, and communicating maritime culture. We are training craftsmen or people from craftsmen to PhD students, and we are forging partnerships with local partners and EU on EU level, and we are able to acquire EU and other funding. As an open place, the museum offers a platform for bridging different groups or bringing different groups together and engaging them in a dialogue on topics relating to maritime cultural heritage. What we see in our region is a lack of initial vocational education and higher education programs focused on the safeguarding and craft techniques and traditional knowledge. The responsibility for preserving maritime cultural heritage is largely falling on the shoulders of volunteers. Because there is no sufficient funding to pay workers to protect those objects. And also the professionalized education strategy is not really there in our region. Most of the vessels we have, especially the vessels of operation, are owned by local clubs and local smaller groups and private persons, and they are doing the work voluntarily. If they are disappearing and they don't have the knowledge any longer to do their work, all the vessels will be gone, and a big important part of the cultural heritage in the northern part of Germany will disappear, and also in our region in Bremen. The shortage of skilled workers increases the workload for experts, and certain skills are not any longer available in the regions. For example, if you want to find a riveter, or you want to find a person who is able to make ropes or sails or something like this, we don't have them any longer in our region. You need to bridge the region. You need to go to other countries. We are seeing this as a museum. We have to bring wooden vessels to boat yards in Denmark to do the maintenance work, because we don't have the knowledge any longer in our region, and also the infrastructure. Partnerships for educating volunteers are scarce, and highlighting the urgent need for the engagement of private companies in the preservation. And we have the problem with the aging workforce in the maritime sector. We have a lot of former captains and people working in the maritime sector, but the maritime sector and the people involved in this area are declining, and so there are no more experts learning their knowledge in their work life coming to the group of the volunteers. So it's really important to involve young volunteers and educate them in a good way. And also, this is a bit special in Germany. Intangible heritage is not really protected by the law, but it is recognized. Next one. But we have some really good examples for skilled practices in the region. The German Maritime Museum, as I said, is a strong orchestra for the ecosystem of cultural heritage in the maritime sector. But there are other organizations especially focused on volunteers and non-professionals. One of these organizations is Sail Training Association Germany. It's dedicated to teach sailing techniques and promoting sail training to young people. They have a funding program where they support young people to go on ships to learn how to sail, to learn the crafts on ship, and they have a really teaching system where you're beginning as a deckhand, and then in the end you're able to steer a vessel. The organization is located in Bremerhaven, in the region of Bremen, but they have vessels all over the coastal area in Germany. So there are many vessels inside of this training organization. And what is really special about this Sail Training Association is that since March last year, it's included in the UNESCO list for intangible heritage. So we have training of traditional crafts protected by the UNESCO list. And this is what I think kind of unique and also kind of cool, because it's not a the result, the teaching itself is now protected by the UNESCO. We also have the so-called Jugendbauhütte. It's a volunteer program by the Deutsche Stiftung Denkmalschutz, German Foundation for the Monument Protection. It's a system where people after their high school time, young people are allowed to spend a year learning crafts in the maintenance and protection of heritage, mostly construction and buildings. And they are allowed to travel a bit around. There are complete group of young people, and they are learning heritage techniques, craftsmanship, etc., before they normally start their professional life career. And which is also new in our region in Bremen is a new Maritime Heritage Foundation that is has the aim to find funding to solve different problems for the private owned vessels and the volunteers. They try to communicate the needs of those involved, and they try to promote an exchange within the sector between the volunteers and other organizations. Next. It was for me not clear that we are only allowed to share one question, and I wrote down 3 questions. I'm really sorry for this, but in the end, what we are interested in is, do you have experience with interregional skill partnerships in the maritime cultural heritage, and especially with programs that are focusing on volunteers, on non-professionals, because it's really important that we are teaching those people, because without them, as I said, all of the maritime heritage will be lost in the next generation. And I think there are ways to fund this maritime heritage. As I said, it's really in the interest of the people. And next slide.
Yes.
Next slide. If we do this, the volunteers in Bremen and also the ships, the intangible and tangible heritage will look, I think, quite positively to the future, and we will be there for the next generations to come to teach them and give them the experience of their forefathers and the older generations that have been working on sea and at the shores. Thanks.
Thank you, Lars, also for the warm invitation and the positive takeaway message. We look bright to the future, but we need to join forces all over Europe. So also there, please include your answers in the Mentimeter. This brings me actually to the next region that we would like to present to you today, which is the Alentejo region in Portugal. And I am happy to give the floor to Alexandra Correa, who will do the presentation.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure being here with you and to speak about the challenges in the Alentejo region. Can you change? Okay, so in Alentejo, we spoke about in our workshop, we spoke about the traditional heritage and about the intangible heritage. And we find that in the work that we developed with all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, not only the workshop, but before the workshop and after the workshop, we find some needs that we have at the regional level. And some of them are about the traditional, it's one of the main things that the problems that we have there is retaining young people in the region. And this is transversal for everything. Because we have a strongly aging population and it's very challenging. Skill supply for cultural heritage in Alentejo is really at risk, but not only for cultural heritage. We have a problem of fixing and having population and more than population, the young people to be there and to study there and to develop their work in the region. So it's one of the great problems that we have in Alentejo in the moment. And this affects also the cultural heritage sector. But we find some specific needs in the field of cultural heritage. One of them is connected with the traditional buildings, and we speak here about structure and materials, and the conservation and restoration of ancient buildings is lacking in the architecture and engineer programs. In the universities, these programs don't. At architecture and the engineer, we don't have a specific lessons about these conservation and restoration of ancient buildings, and it will be very important to have it. We need also more practice-oriented contacts between the training and the world of professional cultural heritage, because and here we should connect more in VET and in the higher education. We should work on this to make more connections between the work and the trainings. We also need to have a challenge for transformational skills and to adequately address the challenge that we are facing now about the green and blue transition and the digital transition and the new European Bauhaus. We have to work on this, and it's a huge challenge in our region too. We also found that there is a heritage literacy for policymakers and decision makers. We should upscaling about the importance of both tangible and intangible cultural heritage, and work with these decision makers and policymakers in this matter and on this thematic, because it is very important for the public policies and to develop this sector in the region. So, okay, but we also find some very good practices in the region, and we can speak about them. We have the priority in cultural and creative ecosystems in our smart specialization strategy for Alentejo region. And it's also, Alentejo, it's also a pilot region for the national strategy for Portuguese know-how that works on the traditional knowledge and the handicrafts, crafts it's a national program, but Alentejo is a pilot region. We have also a strong ecosystem collaboration, and here we can find the collaboration between the universities. In this case, we have the University of Évora, the Polytechnic Institute of Beja, and the Polytechnic Institute of Porto Alegre. And for instance, in the University of Évora, we have the Hercules laboratory that works about the thematic is cultural heritage, and they make studies and work on the safeguarding of cultural heritage. They are focusing on the integration of the physical and material sciences, methodologies, and tools in an interdisciplinary approach. So they are doing a very good job on it. We also have the Center of Art and History and Artistic Innovation. It's also in the University of Évora, and the Interdisciplinary Center for Story, Cultures and Societies. And we also have a UNESCO share in intangible heritage and traditional know-how in the university. So these research centers and labs are working very well on this thematic. We have another example. It's another kind of program that we call it Transformer program. And in this program, we have trainings for cultural mediators and participatory citizens engagements. And there is something very interesting on this project, that is, they are making a pilot prescribing cultural activities in the health systems to improve mental and social well-being. So it's new for us, and it's a pilot activity, but it's very interesting. And we have another project activity that is been named School of Ancient, where we are making identification of different traditional knowledge that are connected with the green circular economy, and we are trying to use this traditional knowledge and make trainings and improve it, and making young people and unemployed people also developing skills and try to start new jobs and new activities with this traditional knowledge. And we also have the Centro Magalhães, that is a cross-border with Spain, and it's a kind of incubator for creative industries, and they are connecting very well the traditional knowledge and traditional crafts with the new technologies also. And it's a very nice experience, and they are making very good work on it. So to finalize the questions we have to you are these two. We have two questions, and one of them is who is interested in establishing an interregional skills partnership for an intangible network, and who is interested to strengthen collaboration to counteract young people leaving the region. They are the two main questions that we have for you. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandra, for presenting Alan Techhu's region and the challenges. For the audience, I just noticed that it should obviously be intangible heritage in the first question, but I think it was obvious. But thank you for presenting. I will take you to Tuscany now in Italy. So we also did a regional workshop in Tuscany. Unfortunately, our Italian colleagues were unable to join us today, and I'm happy to present the work that we did. We did a 2 days workshop focusing on the digital transition, on digital innovation and cultural heritage, and we looked into skills, needs, and challenges both in VET and in higher education. When it comes in general to the skills related needs that we identified for the Tuscany region, the first thing was really that the need for training methodologies and skills for both tangible and intangible heritage. So we're constantly looking for new methodologies to transfer the knowledge. And linked to that, both in VET and in higher education, the challenges, as mentioned by the previous speakers already, linked to the triple transition, the digital, the green transition, and the social transition, are very important when it comes to designing upskilling offers. In that respect, it was important also to stress the need for better harmonization between higher education on the one hand and VET, to reduce mismatches between different levels of education, and also to speed up the recognition of new profiles and offer both short and long-term training. So there is really a need for a mixed approach and a mixed offer to address the skill supply. And when we had this exchange with the stakeholders, they also stressed their need to find tools to guarantee that everyone working in the sector and in society in general is really entitled to lifelong learning. And in this respect, the individual learning accounts presented by Council recommendations in 22 can actually be an important game changer, because when member states implement this recommendation, it would actually give people in working age, regardless whether they are actually working or unemployed, the right to have 5 days of training, which is very important to open up the possibilities. And this should go also hand in hand with solid guidance and career management skills, so that the talents that we have among the younger generation are better used when choosing for study programs, but also when choosing careers. To progress in this field, Tuscany is one of the regions, along with also the Basque Country and many others, that are working with statistics. And these statistics, they are bundled in regional observatories, and it is very important to get the statistics good, to get a good idea of what are the skills that the sector currently needs, what are the skills that the sector will need for the future, and how can a region, in this case Tuscany region, holding legal competences in the field of education and training, actually work with this data to make better policies, to take better policy measures to anticipate skills shortages for the sector. Overall, what we've seen also in Tuscany, but also in other regions, is that there's really a need to strengthen the regional skills ecosystem, particularly in the reality of Europe, which is a multi-level governance reality where legal competences in the field of education and training in the field of cultural heritage, but also in the field of employment, are scattered over different levels of governance. And it's very important to have all these levels of governance working together to be more effective, resilient, and reactive to changes. Some good regional skills examples that we discovered in the Tuscany regions. First of all, the region is very strong in interregional and European cooperation. The region is leading a European network, which is a smart specialization strategy partnership for cultural and creative regional ecosystems. It's basically a network of regions who, in their regional strategy, which is called the smart specialization strategy, prioritize heritage. These regions work together, and deriving from all these partnerships, Tuscany region is also pioneering with a few of these regions in projects like the Stride for Stride project, where they look specifically into regional skills ecosystem. How do you establish this? How do you get endorsement? How can you actually take policy measures to address challenges? And also the Skilla project is one of the very interesting projects to look into, because they link smart specialization to skills ecosystems for the twin transition. So they're very strong at this, which is also for them very valuable, because they learn from other regions. Also in Tuscany, as they hold the legal competences for education and training, they have developed a regional strategy for cultural and digital competences, which is quite unique. So they're very hard working with all the stakeholders in this field. And this work, as I already said, is supported by their regional cultural observatory with indicators, with statistics, to make better decision-making possible. On the slide, you see a picture of the workshop that we had in Firenze, which was taken actually in the Cantiere Scuola, the Bottega Scuola, which is a workplace offering a training course for technicians for restoration of cultural heritage, more specifically mosaic materials and derivatives. It's a training program where a handful of young people really learn the métier, as they say in French, of maintaining, conserving, restoring the sculptural and the architectural decoration of both the cathedral and the baptistry of the Tuscany Cathedral. So this was really an intense and nice program to see how these young people are being trained to absorb traditional knowledge and at the same time are also using new technologies to improve in their work. What the Tuscany region is particularly keen on to find out from the audience is if any of you is aware of instruments, European or other, along with methodologies and funding to develop skills intelligence tools. So how do you collect better data on what skills are needed, what skills will be needed for the future, basically as a basis for new inputs for the observatory and policy making. So this is the question of the Tuscany region. We know that many regions are working on this in Europe. So if you have any ideas on that, feel free to drop your answers also in the Mentimeter. And then I am happy to give the floor to our final speaker of regions, Marie Oddenbrink from Västra. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good. Very nice to be here with you. At the region Västra Götaland, we chose the theme Sustaining the Built Heritage. We had this workshop last June, and we focused on the challenge within the built heritage. And if you work with the built heritage, the ambitions to work with integrated conservation touches very many aspects, like protection and preservation, safeguarding, planning, design, climate change, use, sustainability, identity, tourism, all things that we think is an important part of the built heritage ecosystem. At the workshop, we lifted 3 different perspectives. to try to mirror and deepen the challenges of built cultural heritage and integrated conservation and the skills, needs and challenges connected to this. The first one was building conservation, which focused on the more tangible and practical perspectives. The second perspective was heritage and community planning, which focused on the possibilities and demands in the planning situation in Swedish municipalities connected to cultural heritage and to the built environment. And the third perspective tried to focus heritage and use, and focused on the use of the built heritage and the role of the civil society and the possible spillover effects that the cultural heritage can have on heritage environments. We had stakeholders representing research, entrepreneurs, governments, municipalities, and the civil society, all present in Västra Götaland. And we tried to reach a bit outside the sector when choosing among our many stakeholders. We had some findings during this workshop and during our mapping of our ecosystem, and you see some of them here. One is the obvious need of continuous professional development, and the most needed upskilling should target competencies to address challenges like climate change, the digital and other complex transitions, along with entrepreneurial skills and transformer skills, and soft skills like communication and pedagogical skills are often asked for example. And also skills like circular economy. We could also see this, as many already have mentioned, the crafts and craft-related competences are at risk in many situations, and though they are very much needed in the management of historic buildings. We can also see a kind of multi-level paradox. Cultural heritage is managed within a multi-level system with national, regional, and municipal actors. We have an ambitious national legislation regarding heritage, but then it is conducted at local level where the planning monopoly is very strong in Sweden. And there we can see a lack of competencies and also obvious conflicting goals that will become more obvious in the local perspective. And here we could see that the regional level brings overview and can create impact and has competencies that don't exist at local level. But it needs funding to be able to work with this regional level and educate and look. The last challenge I put on the slide is the challenge to reach outside the sector, to be part of regional strategies. We have cultural strategies, but how to be part of the regional development strategy, for example, is a challenge. And we also discussed a bit during the workshop in Sweden, how can we reach the tourism sector, for example, and other educations like architectural educations earlier mentioned here today. And also we mentioned the construction companies, for example, the construction industry. The building heritage, the heritage buildings is really a small part of this. So it's much to reach too. If you change slide, we have, of course, good regional practices that we think is very, very good, very nice to have. And for instance, the craft laboratory in Mariestad, which the workshop continued till in June. And it is funded in 2010, and it is a national center for crafts and a platform for craftspeople to document and develop craft knowledge. The comprehensive agenda for societal involvement and collaboration works to bring research into practice and involve craftspeople in the processes of inquiry. The laboratory initiate craft projects and act as a platform for professional meetings between craftspeople and other stakeholders in the field of cultural heritage management. The focus area are building crafts, cultural landscapes, and gardening crafts. It is very closely connected to the University of Gothenburg and the Institution of Conservation, which educates people like me, heritage experts. But it's also in the same house as a higher vocational education called the Capo in Mariestad. So together they form a very good center. And then we have our own regional center, Building Preservation Center at Näs. It was funded in 1990, and here we want to develop craft and building preservation as an industry, a cultural heritage, and a mediator of knowledge regarding integrated conservation in the built environment. The point of departure is our cultural heritage in our region in combination with sound, sustainable materials that have stood the test of time and are still among the best you can choose. At the center, we offer a library, exhibitions, short courses, mainly for house owners, digital lectures, counseling, demonstrations, and we also have a shop that is very important. Something we have together with the Craft Laboratory and our national board, Heritage Board, is the biannual conference that is going to take place this September, and we have run it since 2013. It brings together the industry, craftsmen, material producers, managers, heritage experts, consultants, heritage officers, and many more meet for a few days of inspiring networking, lectures, presentations, and workshops. It attracts around 500 people from all over Sweden and also some of the Nordic countries, and it's really some inspiring days we have. I'm now struggling with that program, I could say, the agenda, and it's quite a work to do. And also I will lift up our work with networks. As you can see, we think this is very crucial, and we have a strong collaboration with several networks, both professionals and with the civil society. For example, with heritage experts and officers at the municipalities, regional museums, and the county administration. And we have a network of small restoration companies that we participated in bringing together, and also very good networks with the civil society. For example, today we have this theme day of historic mills that I had to leave for participating here, with 80 enthusiastic mill owners and people who love mills. So that's a very good kind of network. Yes. One could say that building conservation is an area of strength in Västra Götaland, with several educators and strong regional actors and well-established networks. But how can we be even more resilient and reach outside the sector? Work with up and reskilling in a more systemic way. So this is our question, and I'm curious about this regional observatory thinking, for example. Can an observatory help strengthening collaboration and give a more systemized up and reskilling and reach out to neighboring sectors? Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. You all did a wonderful job of presenting the work that we've done. This brings me to the next part of the presentation. And for a strange reason, my computer is not cooperative anymore. But giving it time to relaunch, what I wanted to share with the audience before really open the floor for questions, was a bit a summarizing overview. So what we've learned from the 6 case studies is that the willingness for collaboration in the sector is very, very big. But when we look into the practice, the sector integrated cooperation dynamics remain fragmented or mostly project-based, not systemic, too siloed, focusing on one specific sub-sector of heritage, and are often not embedded in policy frameworks or long-term strategies. And this leads and contributes to a lack of deep mutual understanding between the world of education and training on one hand and the world of work on the other hand. On top of that, a general learning is that there is a lack of systemic approach that regions can take to do skills, needs, and gaps assessment, and also a lack of systemic approach to develop skill strategies from an ecosystem perspective. So beyond a single profession, a single training program, or a single subsector of heritage. Furthermore, you have heard it in practically all the presentations. There's really an urgent need for upskilling when it comes to the skills to address the impact of climate change, the digital transition, and other complex transitions. On top of that, also entrepreneurial skills, transformative skills, and soft skills must be integrated in future heritage education and training program. All of this being said, we also saw in each of the regions, and you saw it throughout the presentation, that regions are successful laboratories for small-scale innovative pilots in the field of education and training, and they're able to address specific regional heritage skills needs, even when they don't hold the legal competences in the field of education and training. This being said, it is important for these pilots that there is actually a policy embedded approach in order to sustain these small-scale pilots and training courses, enable to scale these pilots, and also to transfer them to other regions in Europe. When it comes to the suggestions, we have found some good instruments that can actually help heritage stakeholders, but also the regions to progress in this field. So first of all, we encourage regions to invest in the critical preconditions for flourishing cultural heritage ecosystems. They can do it by taking an integrated and policy-embedded approach for heritage in regional development policies and strategies, to invest in strong participatory governance, and to connect with other regions, neighboring regions, and other European regions in European networks. This is particularly important because these European networks and projects, they actually provide funding to be used to address specific regional skills needs. And this is particularly interesting also for these regions who don't hold the legal competences or when funding is missing. Beyond that, we have identified several tools and methods to strengthen skills governance at regional level, taking a whole of governance approach, which means horizontal coordination between the departments of heritage, education, training, employment, regional development, and so on, but also horizontal coordination to liaise well with actors at local level, but also with governance levels at national level who are in charge of design policies. It's important, several regions already expressed it also in the questions, to invest in skills and intelligence. And this is particularly relevant because we know that changing bachelor program, master programs, VET programs takes a long time. There are long procedures, so the systems are quite rigid to change. And if you invest in skills intelligence, if you have statistics helping you to look better to the future, it will become easier to quickly and more easily innovate education and training programs. Last but not least, and this was also reflecting in several of the questions, it is important that regions and their local and regional heritage and other stakeholders work together in regional and inter-regional skills partnerships. This can be done. There is a Pact for Skills at European level. There is a handbook on how to set it up, and this is basically also paving the way for the Charter Skills Alliance that we are building.